Hey everyone. So I've gotten a lot of requests, or I do get a lot of requests kind of constantly, just asking about makeup application, foundation application, tips and stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing just a few videos on basics, so like just the basics of foundation application and different foundation types, etc. So this first one is just going to be using cream foundation because it's just what I happen to have on for this tutorial, so I decided I'd kill two birds with one stone. Yeah, so there will be a look for this, or a tutorial for this look. I wasn't wearing it just for the crack. But yeah, so this first video anyhow is on cream foundations, just application, skin types, how it reacts to different skin types, different tools you can use, etc. And then I will be doing more on different foundation types, and I'm probably going to go on to like other basics like maybe even like mascara, because you don't see too much about that, but there is a bit that can be said for it, like the different types, applications, etc. So yeah, watch on anyhow, and I'll see you soon for way more videos, and watch out for this tutorial, it'll be up soon. Okay, so the cream foundation that I have, that I've kind of been using a bit lately, is MAC's full coverage foundation. It is a pro product now, so it can only be gotten at pro stores or on the pro website. And these foundations typically are much heavier heavier foundations in feel. They tend to have more pigment in them as well. It's a creamy consistency, so they are generally emollient based. So they are better for kind of that flawless finish, not so much maybe for just everyday outside, or you know, just everyday run-of-the-mill makeup, unless you're looking for a way heavier coverage because of like unwanted pigmentation marks or birthmarks, or you just simply don't like your freckles or whatever. So they are a little bit harder to wear, I think, because there's just so much more product on the face, or it's just more obvious on the face anyhow. So there's a few ways of applying this. You can use your fingers if you want, which takes a bit longer. You can use a sponge, of course, so just like a latex or latex free wedge like this, or you can use your trusty good old foundation brush. This is the only time I really use these. I don't really use these for liquid so much anymore, but they're better for cream based foundations because they can move them around easier. And then sometimes, not very often, but sometimes I will use a stippling brush, but generally I'll have it laid down with this kind of brush first, and this will just be to buff it in. So they're the kind of main ways of applying, or the main brushes and tools you can use for applying cream foundation. Now for me, for yourselves, I'm sure you can just dip straight into the pan, but because I do tend to use products that I use also in my kit, I'm very conscious of hygiene, and from working on you know, counter, I'm very aware of hygiene as well, so I don't like to dip into containers like this. What I've been doing is I scrape out a bit with a spatula, so you can get these at like beauty supply shops, or sometimes if you go to a counter they'll give it to you for free because they just have them for testers. Or the main thing that I've been doing lately is I'm scraping bits out of my container here and I put them into sample pots. So I'll like carry this around in my purse day to day, and it's so much easier for my handbag as well. And I just use this amount of time. Now this kind of size sample pot, this is just a MAC sample pot, it does me for ages because you don't need too much of this product since there is so much pigment in it. So I'm going to go ahead and apply it for you. Okay, so I got some of the product from my sample pot with my spatula and put it onto the back of my hand. The reason I did this is because with these kind of products, it's nice to kind of try and warm them up a bit. It just helps with the application, it helps with this, how they slide and slip over the face, or spread over the face. So I just pop it on the back of my hand. You can use a palette if you want, but like I said, I just like to do this because of the fact that it heats it up a bit. And then I'm using the traditional foundation brush and just spreading it on and kind of buffing it in, and it's nothing fancier than that. There's no like fancy like foolproof method, really. You just want to make sure it's always blended well and buffed in. So that's why sometimes you can use a stiffened brush afterwards once you have most of it spread on. You can wet your brush or your sponge with like spray of Fix Plus or just some mineral water, normal water you put into a spray bottle yourself, and that way it'll give a more sheer finish. I don't really bother. I find I can kind of get the sheer enough just by spreading it out well over the skin. And I know some people, I've heard people complaining about, you know, it doesn't make sense to wet or use water to shear out a grease or oil-based product. And I know in theory that makes sense because oil and water don't mix, but in practice it's fine. It actually works grand. I've never had any problem with it. So just spread it all over where you need it. And it will cover most blemishes depending on how thick you put it on. Say something like this that has a good bit of colour coming through, just when I was picking it. That might need a concealer over it, but generally they will be covered by this foundation. If you are using a concealer over it, back to the oil and water mixing thing, you can use oil concealers over water-based foundations because the skin just absorbs the water, so you're just putting oil on top of skin basically. But skin-based concealers usually don't work over oil-based products, so try and make sure that your concealer and your foundation matches up if you are using them together. So I have enough of this on pretty much now. Okay, so that's everything pretty much on. You can see the blemish I was pointing earlier on has actually been covered, so all I did was kind of concentrate a little bit more product on that area and pat it in, just like you would with a normal concealer. And yeah, so I'm just going to chat a bit about now, once your foundation is on, you will need to set this kind of foundation with the powder if you want it to last. The thing about cream foundations is they're typically more suited towards drier or more mature skins. And maybe if you have very oily skin, not so much, because it's just going to slip and slide over any produced oil. So if you do have more oily skin but you still want to wear it for a while, you can probably wear it short term if you're only going out for a few hours. Try to use an oil control lotion, you know, oil control cleansers, maybe an oil absorbing cream, etc. underneath. That should help a wee bit. If your skin is very dry, it won't look very good either over, you know, with the like flaky skin. So you do need to try and make sure you exfoliate, but this is kind of pretty much with any product. Exfoliate well and make sure it's well moisturized, and maybe use like a silicone based primer to help it slide over it better. So with my kind of skin type, I have quite a combination skin type. For a long time it was more normal to combination, so I had an oily T-zone, pretty much oil normal everywhere else. In the last while it's kind of been varying more. This winter my skin has gotten very dry in areas, but I still have oil being produced in certain areas. So I do have to say powder in the areas that produce oil, and I try not to powder so much in the areas that are drier. But if I'm applying a cream product or a powder product over it, so like blusher or contour powder, I have to powder lightly under that first, just so that the powder will blend over it. I think that's pretty much it then as far as the cream foundations go. For me, I don't really get a long wear out of it, because the areas that are oily, especially if I'm working under hot lights, makeup does separate. So I'll notice it's separating around my nose, under my nose area, sometimes kind of around my mouth area. So it's kind of fine if it hasn't been powdered, because you can just kind of apply more product and buff it back in. But if you've powdered the area after before it separates, you can't really apply over powder, so you do kind of have to take away and reapply. Yeah, if you have oily skin, you probably won't get a long wear out of it. And if you have maybe more normal to dry skin, you probably get a good all day wear out of it. And yeah, that's it pretty much now for cream foundations. The next one I'm going to do is just the liquid foundation, which more people are probably familiar with. And in the meantime, I'll just see you later. I'm about to do a tutorial now, so hopefully I'll have that one up soon as well. Bye.